All right, go ahead and call this meeting in order. First item is roll call.
Alderman Arnold.
Here.
Alderman Bray.
Here.
Alderman Cleaver.
Here.
Alderman Knox.
Here.
Alderman Mills.
Here.
Alderman Skinner.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay. Next item then will be Pledge of Allegiance from Alderman Mills.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is the approval of the agenda.
No changes, Mayor.
Seeing no proclamations, next item would be public comment. We ask the citizens to come forward to the podium and microphone. Make sure you've signed in and you give us your name and address for the record. Do you have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Okay.
My name is Jan Burrell. I live at 1035 Ephraim. I have suggested this in the past, but I thought reminding you of the suggestion might, closer to the time when you would implement it, might be helpful. The suggestion is that the city might sponsor a shot clinic for rabies vaccinations for dogs, which are in January, I would assume. One of the reasons I brought this up is that I'm a farm girl. I was 11 years on the farm, and my relationship with animals isn't quite what other people. But especially as you get older, your pets are very important to you. And the last couple of times I have taken my dogs to the veterinarian, two different places. I've been what's called upsold. I want the rabies shot for my dog. Well, your dog needs this, and your dog needs the teeth clean, your dog needs this and that and the other thing, which makes you feel very guilty. And so I'm not suggesting that the city pay for the shots. People can pay for the shot, but I think it might be of some help, especially to elderly people. And as an aside, this city is very good to its elderly. I've been here 17 years, and it has been very good to the elderly. And I'm not saying it should be limited to the elderly, but I would suggest maybe we could sponsor something. Person could bring their dog on a particular day and get the required shot for their dog. So I just offer that as an idea, and hope you'll consider it.
Well, just to give you an update, we have talked about it.
Oh,
We've talked about it with budget coming up. We've looked at, I think right now we're trying to find somebody to do it. We're looking at trying to tie it in with the city license. So somebody could drive through, get the shot, get the city license all at the same time. So not promising anything because we're still trying to find people that can do it, but we have been looking into it.
Well, I thank you very much, and I can say as an old maybe person walking in to get the license after dealing with your dog in the waiting room at a vet's office is a little bit more knocking in.
Yeah, so we're trying to look at some kind of combined drive-through thing. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
we're trying. I don't know. Part of it is trying to find vets that will do it. So
Thank you.
anyone else wish to address the board? All right. Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
And motion by Alderman Skinner to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Knox. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, seeing no previous business, new business, move on to presentations. We have a presentation about the community survey by ETC Institute.
You can run it. Mic in the stand.
We have a lapel mic if you prefer to. Okay,
We'll see.
just talk close to that one.
Yeah,
Or
gotta-
yell.
Gotta hang.
Oh, that's gonna cost you.
It's like that.
Maybe stripped. All right.
Right on.
That gonna be all right? All right, I'll just kind of hover over it here. So, Mayor, thank you for having me here tonight. Board, it's a pleasure to be here. As was mentioned, I'm Ryan Murray with ETC Institute. I'm the Assistant Director of Community Research with our firm. We've been in business about 40 years and really been dedicated to municipal clients for about the last 35 or so. Really doing a lot of work here in the metro area. If any of you remember my previous presentation now 5 years ago, I feel like a couple familiar faces, but not everybody. We do a ton of work in the metro. We have a Kansas City metropolitan benchmarking average that will show, it's found in your report. As you can see on the screen there, we've got kind of a wide presence nationally. So we do a lot of surveys every year, between about 150 and 300, kind of depending on the topic. But we manage a lot of those locally here, and we're proud to be here this evening. When we talk about the purpose of these surveys, it's really an objective assessment. What we try to call them is a statistically valid or a scientific survey. And that's really based on the methodology. But the purpose of this is really to objectively assess some of your core city services, to measure trends from previous years, which is important, but we'll kind of get into that and how COVID maybe kind of changed some of the trends that we might want to be really taking a look at. We want to compare your performance with those benchmarking items. We take a lot of pride in updating our benchmarking regularly. I think I delivered a first draft of the report and then updated the benchmarking and delivered a secondary report with some new numbers for us. And then we uphold that regional average, which is actually surveys conducted by local Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas City, Kansas clients within the last 2 years. So you're actually seeing apples to apples comparisons, not only in our national benchmarking, but also in our regional benchmarking. So it's really the highest level of performance comparison that we could provide for a community. This is the second community survey administered for the city, but we've administered many other surveys since 2018. For you also, we're familiar with staff and also with the community when it comes to sampling and response rates and things like that. The survey is administered primarily by mail and online. Folks have the option to call us if they'd like to complete the survey over the phone in a preferred language, but most of those surveys are being conducted online or via mail. What we do is we purchase a residential address list of your entire city, and then from that we select a random sample to receive the survey. Only those folks that are randomly selected have the opportunity to participate in the randomly sampled folks or the randomly sampled group, which makes up the statistically valid survey sample. Of that, we were able to collect 404 completed surveys, which means at a 95% level of confidence, 95 out of 100 times we collect 404 surveys from randomly selected households, we'll get these same results plus or minus our margin of error of almost 5% or plus or minus 4.7%. That's for questions where all respondents provided a response. So if you've got a yes/no question and then that filters out to a second question just for those yes respondents, the margin of error is heightened on those questions, but not to a large degree in most instances throughout the survey. Most of these surveys took about 14 or 15 to 18 minutes to complete. That's based on our online administration methods. So we're tracking how long folks are on the survey online, and that was about the average for the online, which we assume is likely going to be pretty close to that paper copy as well. When we talk about random sampling, we're also making sure that the results are coming back in a demographic fashion, a representative demographic fashion. What I mean by that is I want to make sure responses are equally distributed or distributed appropriately across the city. As you can see on the map here, we're tracking the home address of all respondents. First, to ensure that those folks were randomly selected by our firm to participate. Second, to ensure that we're having that good distribution of responses from throughout. In addition to those factors, we're also comparing your results to Census Bureau statistics to ensure, based on the most recently available either ACS 5-year estimates or 2020 census estimates, that race, gender, and age are all captured and actually match within our margin of error. And that's the real key portion here, is that we have representation in our final sample that accurately mirrors within our margin of error the census estimates for your community. And so not only are we doing that by demographics, but also geography, which is really important, and not a lot of firms actually do that. So what we'll sometimes see in other firms is you have a huge concentration in the most affluent neighborhoods and no surveys out anywhere else throughout the community. And what we're aiming to do is get a good distribution of responses from everyone throughout. When we talk about the bottom line up front, I really want to talk about the perceptions. This is kind of a snapshot in time. This is what people think and feel when the survey either shows up in the mail or they get that link and click on it to go online and complete the survey. Over 80% of respondents are very satisfied or satisfied with your community as a place to live. So again, 8 out of 10 people in a room, you'd be hard pressed to find 2 people that would say, hey, I'm not satisfied or very satisfied with Green Valley. 80% also indicated that they're very satisfied or satisfied with the city as a place to raise children. As a consultant, when I see these results, the first thing that I go to is that perceptions question. It's usually the first question on the survey. And those are the couple of items that I'm always tracking to make sure that we're at that number or we're really close to where we should be. And it'll really tell me how folks are likely to answer the rest of the questions on the survey. If we had about 50% of folks say they're very satisfied or satisfied with the city as a place to live, we should expect some downturn results throughout the rest of the survey instrument and the findings. We just didn't see that here. One of the major things of this survey is that we design it with staff in a way that's going to lead to priority. So even if everybody completed the survey and we're 100% satisfied with every major city service you rated on the survey, we would still design and develop priorities for improvement based on our important satisfaction analysis. We'll go through that a little bit more. The full methodologies in your report. Based on the important satisfaction analysis, it really highlights 5 major improvement areas. The maintenance of city streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, which I believe is likely being severely impacted by the current state of some of your MoDOT roads that were actually labeled as MoDOT roads on your survey. Enforcement of city codes and ordinances, and although we've seen an uptick in some of those responses from 2018, it seems like the city's telling you, hey, we'd like to see more of that, or please continue those code enforcement efforts. Effectiveness of communication with the public, we've got a slide towards the end that'll show where folks are really probably the most dissatisfied with their communication with the government. Parks and recreation programs and facilities and police services kind of round out that top 5, but we'll look at all those independently when we get to that particular section. When I talk about perceptions, again, this is a snapshot in time. While we want to make sure that we're asking for an objective assessment from things, folks are definitely going to use their kind of most recent or most useful experience with some of these services or some of these items to impact their responses here. As you can see, relatively high levels of very satisfied and satisfied responses throughout. Where we see kind of a downturn in that satisfaction is planning for development, which is a typical kind of downturn for satisfaction, and the overall value received for your city tax dollars and fees. I'm going to switch this over to our trends. We were able to trend most of these items. As you can see, the overall value for taxes and fees and the quality of the educational system within Green Valley has really gone down in terms of overall combined very satisfied and satisfied remarks. While you'll see in the benchmarking how that's kind of contextualized a little bit more than what you're seeing in the trends, this is the opportunity that I wanted to take to make sure that you all understood that ETC is very particular with how we're consulting communities on reviewing trends, especially 5-year trends. Now, if you'd done a survey in 22 or 21, we would maybe want to look at 18 as a comparison. What I really wanted to do was make sure that we were showing you how 2018 results looked, but across the country, we're seeing sharp downturns in those perceptions of government that are related primarily to public trust. We don't trust our school districts as much. We don't trust what you're doing as a steward of our tax dollars. And we're seeing those type of responses or perception shifts right in our results here from year over year. One of the other areas that we're seeing a shift is appearance of your neighborhood and appearance of commercial property in the city. One of our top priorities for improvement is is code enforcement, but we actually saw a sharp increase in the appearance of our neighborhoods and the appearance of our commercial properties in the city. So they're telling us we're doing some good things. They're also telling us that our perceptions have shifted over the last few years. When we talk about some of these ratings, you might want to go to your GIS maps appendix to take a look at how some of those ratings broke out across your 3 wards. As you can see, there's that northern, central, and southern zone there. This is the overall quality of the education system within the city. And although we saw a sharp decrease in overall satisfaction, the average ratings from each one of these 3 zones is still averaging out to about a satisfied rating, or about a 4 on that 5-point scale. When we look at overall value received for tax dollars and fees, there are no areas. What I'm really looking for here based on the overall ratings is an area of orange or red, an area of major concern. We're seeing pretty typical citywide perceptions related to that particular item as well. Now, the GIS mapping appendix, I didn't want to go over all of the maps from that. There's a lot of them, I think about 100. Those are all of our 5-point scale questions. They can help you maybe pinpoint an area or a ward that's maybe a little bit more or less dissatisfied with a particular area or a particular service based on some of those questions that were asked. This was a question that we asked in 2018, but we had a new item for 2023. I wanted to just make sure that we were touching on this. Folks agree that you should be taking proactive measures to encourage existing or new development or redevelopment along major business corridors. But the overall commercial areas in Green Valley are actually better than they were 5 years ago and increased in agreement with that particular statement. The new statement for 2023, which actually received a large sum of strongly agree ratings, was it's important for households in Green Valley to develop a thriving downtown that brings economic opportunity to the city. And so that's definitely a priority for them. I know it's been a priority for the city, and you've actually made some movements or made some actions and some planning decisions based on that, but I think it's a positive sign. And the only area that had slightly elevated, about 22% disagree, strongly disagree ratings, was the encouragement of business redevelopment within the city and the use of tax incentives for that particular development tool. So that's where folks are likely kind of rating us down, and I'm going to go back here, rating us down on how well the city's planning for development is likely some of the things that they're maybe not in the room for. Is I hate to always call this out, but there's never a lot of people in the room when I'm presenting these results. Now, they might be reviewing online or they might read the minutes, but we know not every resident in the community has a really solid handle on what the city's doing to redevelop or organize or even to improve or redevelop our downtown area. And so I think that some of that is showing here as well. When we talk about the city of Green Valley being business friendly, about 2/3 of respondents said yes. We cross-tabbed that against a demographic question that asked if you're also a business owner here. We had about 18 folks say that they were business owners, and 73.3%, so even higher value of that particular group indicated yes, we think the city's pretty business friendly. So about 3/4 of business owners with an extremely high margin of error considering there were only 18. But when you talk about our overall results, 2/3 of respondents think they are a business friendly community. And although we had some challenges based on perception-related ratings from some of our key areas, 83% of respondents indicated they plan on living in the city over the next 5 years. So most folks are pretty satisfied with the quality of life here. They're happy to raise their children here, and they plan on continuing to live here for the vast majority of folks 5 years from now. When we talk about benchmarks, I want to compare you to the US average and the Kansas City Metro average. There's a lot of benchmarking in the report that you can review, but you rated above the US average in 30 of the 51 areas that were assessed, or about 60% of those. Some of those key areas include rating the city as a place to live, which I think is just, one of those quality of life items, but the overall quality of your education system, 27% above the national average. Now, not every community in the Kansas City metro area rates their quality of the education system, but as you can see there, you're nearly 49 percentage points above the metro average. Those are just a few communities that ask that question. But when we talk about our code enforcement being a top priority, appearance of our neighborhoods on both sides of these, Kansas City metro and US average, well above the national average. Rating the city as a place to raise children, overall feeling of safety, all of these contextualization items is what we want to provide for clients to make sure that you know how you're comparing locally and regionally. And even though we might see a sharp decline in satisfaction year over year from 18 to 23, we think COVID has really changed the expectations of respondents, and this is probably the more accurate contextualization or comparison of your results moving forward. We talk about priorities for improvement. We're addressing satisfaction and also importance in the same analysis, and what we really want to understand are where are those items where folks are below average satisfied and above average in their importance. Many years ago, we were just asking about satisfaction. We were consulting on satisfaction, and we would have suggested, you need to improve enforcement of city codes and the city streets and infrastructure along with communication. And some of those items are actually really important to residents. But when we really put these two things together, we really need to understand what's going to probably have an impact on overall satisfaction. The most likely item is likely going to be maintenance of city streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. Followed by police services, which in your community is more of a support of police services. They want you to continue to emphasize the strong police force that you have here, and they want you to continue that enforcement of city codes and ordinances for which we saw those appearance ratings shoot up over the last 5 years. Parks and Recreation is another item where nearly 3 in 10 respondents selected it as one of the most important items for you to emphasize, and that's another reason why it pops up to be one of our top priorities for improvement. Now, I've starred the item maintenance of city streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure, so in our next slide, we can pay closer attention to some of those other city street maintenance items. But on this list, I do want to break this down. This is a little bit of a higher level of a breakdown than the report provides, but basically the items in the green are the items where the city's performing extremely well already in terms of overall importance and satisfaction. Even a sharp improvement in the overall quality of library services or customer service from city employees is highly unlikely to have a dramatic impact on your overall perception ratings or satisfaction in your next survey. The items that are likely going to have that biggest impact are those items in red. Those are the items that receive below average satisfaction and above average importance, and trash recycling and yard waste collection is one of those items to keep an eye out on, because if we see a decline in satisfaction, most likely importance is going to creep up and we're going to have that item as a top priority as well. Now, I wouldn't say that your police services are in dire need of assistance. It's just a support from the community is what we're seeing there. Same with Parks and Recreation. Relatively high levels of satisfaction generally with those two items. They're just really important for the residents to make sure that the city's continuing to emphasize them. The items at the top, I believe, are most impacted by the maintenance of streets not owned or maintained by the city, which we provided in the survey as Buckner and Tarzany, which who knows what the speed limit is out there when you head too far south on Buckner Tarsi. I came from Greenwood and just riding the line there. So maintenance and preservation of downtown Green Valley, but we also have maintenance of major city streets such as Snyebar, Eagles Parkway, and Duncan, and then maintenance of streets in your neighborhood that all fall much below in terms of the overall satisfaction ranks and overall importance ranks compared to those maintenance of streets not owned by the city. So I strongly believe that the ratings from this slide are most likely being impacted by some of your core roads and core arteries that are actually maintained and owned by the state. Now, we do a lot of work in St. Louis County. They have the similar issue, but they're typically county roads. We see the same thing in the city of Clayton, a relatively high-performing organization, and the maintenance of those county roads are always at the top of their list. And I think that here we see a major impact on this item that started at the top by the item that started here that only received 24% of overall satisfaction. So only 1 in 4 residents were satisfied ranking to those. We also did this for public safety services, which we weighed satisfaction and importance. Visibility of police in neighborhoods is one of those highest ranked items. Satisfaction is relatively low, 12 out of 14. It's the most important rank. From what I've heard, and Chief, please chime in if you'd like, but in working with other police chiefs across the country, this does not seem to be the highest definition of what keeps a community safe is having police visible in neighborhoods. Now, it's fantastic to see a cruiser down your street every so often, but we also know it's really impossible to stand at your front window all day and notice when they do or don't drive down your street. So that's an item. It's unfortunate it's at the top of our priority investment rating. The ratings suggest that we should improve our performance in that particular area, but I think you've got a police chief that knows what to do in order to keep your community safe. And I would not necessarily buy too much into the visibility of police in neighborhoods and thinking more that's a perception-related item that will keep people thinking that they're safe. But most likely a lot of the other work that chief and the police staff are doing is the real things that are going to keep people safe in the community. Now, city's overall efforts to prevent crime is second. Again, middle of the road to bottom of the pack, satisfaction, relatively important, number 2 on the list. That's another perceptions-related issue. That's something that should be kind of easily handled with some of our communication and outlets and things like that. Hey, we're doing X, Y, and Z to keep the community safe or prevent crime in our community. And it can just kind of be some of those would you know or did you know or it's nice to know type items for us. Visibility of police in retail areas and commercial areas also types the list, but what we're really seeing here is that these are all 3 perception-related items. Folks are generally satisfied with the effectiveness of your local police protection, the enforcement of your local traffic laws, the core professionalism of your police, competence of the police personnel, responsiveness to the investigation of criminal offenses, all the core services, all the things that really help maintain order and justice, I believe, in our communities. It sounds like police force is really handling that, and it's some of our perception-related issues towards the top that are really kind of coming out here as top priorities, but less action-oriented, more intangible versus tangible. When we go to codes enforcement, we saw a sharp increase in satisfaction here, but we saw a lot of folks emphasize many of these items. You know, the top 3 there were selected by a lot of respondents to the survey. Satisfaction was relatively low, which really contrasts with the perception slide that I showed you in the trend where we saw an increase in some of those ratings. Folks are telling us that we just really need to get out there and continue to hit the ground in terms of code enforcement. It appears to me, based on the ratings from 18 and today, they saw what you did, they saw the improvements that were made, things improved, and they want you to continue to improve them. And that's why we saw such a huge, most important rating for the enforcing of cleanup of trash and debris on private property. And in Parks and Recreation, another area where it received really good levels of satisfaction throughout. Folks are always going to ask for more walking and biking trails in communities. Swimming pools and programs are always going to be overly important, and that's where we see the 1, 2, and then number of city parks being the 3rd most important item for you all to emphasize. There were a lot of items on the Parks and Rec section, including some of the areas that were really performing well. Quality of your youth recreation programs, athletic fields, communication from Parks and Rec, maintenance, which is really one of those areas in a poor performing community. We'd see maintenance top this list. We're not seeing it here. We're seeing availability, number, your pool, those types of core items that you're offering to the community, and they'd like to see more or an improvement in what they're already seeing. So the more positive signs, and we know that we highlight these in reds, we call them high priorities for improvement, but really if you're managing the system well and you've got great subject matter experts on staff, leave it to those folks to use this data to help plan for the future. When we talk about communication, this is one of the other areas I want to highlight. Now, when COVID happened, it kind of hit communities hard, but it hit our firm as well. A lot of our clients were calling to say, hey, we want to postpone our survey. and we kind of didn't have a lot to do. We sent a ton of data, historical data, to the University of Kansas, and they've got a data analytics group there that was willing to work and partner with our firm to just review our old data and let us know some findings. And what they basically found is that overall, the most impactful item across all surveys across 30 years is communication. And as communication satisfaction ebbs and flows, so do some of those perception-related items. Now, what we're seeing here is a stark contrast with the bottom 3 items to the top 5 items in terms of generalized satisfaction. There's a lot of neutral here, which makes sense when it comes to communication. Folks are living here not necessarily to communicate and engage with their city government. They're living here because of the quality of life, and it's a great place to raise their children. So we have a lot of neutral ratings on this particular item, but city's email, social media pages, availability of information, website, efforts to keep you informed about local issues, all kind of stand head and shoulders above some of those other items. And we, as elected officials, and I'm an elected official myself, it's difficult to engage, and it's difficult to engage the right people. And it's difficult, especially in a community this large, to engage everybody all the time. So we see some sharp, very dissatisfied remarks in the elected officials' efforts to support a dialogue, level of public involvement in local decision-making, and the opportunity to engage, provide input into decisions made by elected officials. But again, I call to the room here, there aren't a lot of residents that are just willing to engage. They're letting us know that on the survey, hey, I don't feel engaged, but again, the action is not quite there. This was just an interesting slide with some upticks in dissatisfaction in terms of the availability of information about city programs and services, with about 23% dissatisfaction. But really, efforts to keep residents informed all the way to the bottom are the areas that are probably of the most concern when it comes to communication. One of the other areas that I like to assess in these surveys is where are you getting your information? It makes no sense for us to qualify or quantify our satisfaction with communication if we're not willing to make the effort to go out there and kind of get in people's faces, or at least put the information where the people are. What we do is we ask in question 12, what are the most used sources, or which sources overall do you use to get information about the city? And you're seeing that here. About half of folks said from friend and family. I call that word of mouth, and about half or a little bit more from your social media pages. And that could just be city social media, but we're not exactly sure the intent of the respondent on that. So it could be the local Grain Valley resident chat, or whatever other Facebook group that there might be out there. What I've highlighted with the arrows here are those areas that are of most preference. So where do residents actually prefer to get their information? We should continue to engage on social media, but we should really be trying our best to push the city's website, as well as Valley News, which I assume is we didn't discuss this, but it's a secondary local source. Yep. And then the email newsletter. And I've been really pushing the newsletters. If they're being selected as a high preference item, it can be easy. I mean, folks unsubscribe, but it can be easy enough to continue to ask for emails, to get folks to opt into texts, and that can be kind of a primary mode of communication. Now, we know we're all inundated in our inboxes with junk mail all the time, but if you can put out pertinent information or important information at a regular interval, folks are much more likely to kind of be receptive to some of that information and at least stay engaged that way. I don't think we're ever going to fill these chambers. I think that has come and gone those days, unless it's a hot topic issue. But we need to do our best to get in people's pockets, and I think cell phones are going to be the best way for municipalities moving forwards to really inform and stay engaged with folks. It's going to be a really tough battle for community engagement staff in most communities, but gaining our following, growing our following online, gathering emails, and most importantly, opt-ins for text messages is going to go a long way to help kind of push and develop that new form of communication as we move even further into the future. With that, I'll take any questions. I've got the full report on me, but anything I cannot respond to, I will go back to the drawing board and make sure Ken and Teresa get a response within the next day or two.
You don't have any questions?
You said you got 404 respondents back, but how many did you mail out?
Yeah, about 2,000. I think it was a little bit more than that, maybe 2012. So it's about a 20% response rate. And that's been historically the case for most of your surveys here. And that's a really strong response rate. Very few.
Is it? Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, very few communities achieve that. I mean, when we go to San Antonio, we're lucky to kind of eke out like a 10% response, and just throwing gobs and gobs of paper surveys out there.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Administrator.
Mayor, can we make sure that the board gets a copy of his?
Yeah, we'll get the whole thing out.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no public hearings, move on to resolutions. First resolution is R 23-68. Resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley authorizing the city administrator to spend funds to renew the annual software and hardware maintenance and support agreement with Neptune Technology.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution R 23-68.
Yeah, I have a motion by Alderman Bray to approve resolution R 23-68. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Knox. Any discussion?
Mayor, members of the board, this would just be extending our agreement with Neptune, which is who we use for our water meters and all the water meter reading systems. We have been very happy with them and have, over the last year or so with the going to more of the radio reads from the towers, been very happy with the performance on that end and the amount of staff time that we're saving from having to go out and do it manually. So been happy, and it's just continuing that agreement with them.
Ken, are we 100% on the electronic water meter?
As far as reads, I think we're at 96. Yeah.
97%.
Little things you don't think about, like tree covered areas when they're fully bloomed out, do affect some of them still, but yeah, it's a lot better than it used to be, having people walk around and actually checking the meters. And then the other side of it too, on the for the public being able to, I guess, easier identify the water and when the high usage was and that kind of thing. It's helped our utility billing staff out a lot, I know, to be able to work with customers when they call and have questions about things.
Any additional questions or discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. 6-0. Next resolution is R 23-69. Resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley, Missouri to enter into a contract with Tandem Paving Company Incorporated to crack, fill, and seal coat Butterfly Trail.
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution R 23-69.
Motion Alderman Cleaver to approve resolution R 23-69. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Bray. Any discussion?
Mayor, members of the board, we had originally budgeted just to do the crack sealing on the trail. And it's kind of amazing to think this, but that was put in 2012. So we're over that 10-year mark. So maintenance was always going to be required, but what we're actually wanting to do is use savings from the Ryan Road Trail project. And while they're out there doing the crack sealing, go ahead and seal the trail as well, just to get additional usage out of that. And it actually works really well because there were a few cuts that had to be made with the construction of the new police station. So those are done, finished, so we can seal it and not have to go breaking back into it anytime soon to just kind of lengthen the lifespan of that trail. And by doing those at the same time, we do save on mobilization costs as well versus having them come out later and do it.
Any questions or discussion?
This is sealing the entirety of the trail, right? Not just filling in cracks.
Yeah.
As well as the parking lot, the trailhead parking lot.
Anything additional? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. 6-0. That's it for resolutions. Seeing no ordinances, move on to city attorney's reports.
Nothing really from me, Mayor and Board. Joe let me come see everybody today, so hello. Joe just got back from IMLA. He did some training in California. That was good, and we hired 2 new attorneys, so you might be seeing them around.
Next up is city administrator and staff reports.
Yep, just had one thing today. In front of you have the budget book, so don't forget to take those with you. But that is next Monday at 6, and that'll be here. And just like last year, if you see anything in between now and then that you have questions about, feel free to reach out and ask, and we can have that information for you at the workshop to make it as seamless as possible. So we'll see you next Monday.
That's it. Next up, the Board of Aldermen reports and comments. Alderman Arnold.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up that our Green Valley Band continues to strive and achieve high honors. They came out as grand champions at Blue Springs North Band Competition on the 30th, scoring top honors in all 3 categories: visual, musical, and performance. So they're going to be going to Indiana here next month, which is going to be quite a trip for the kids to do, and look forward to seeing great things there. The competition level is going to go up a little bit at that next level, but hopefully they'll rise to the challenge and continue to shine. Spectacular's coming up, and I know there's becoming more and more excitement there as it gets closer. I was just curious how our donations, collections were going on that. I know you were gonna work on that.
I actually did some work today to try to get something out. We have not received any as of yet from what I've put out, but I'm still working on it.
Okay, well, I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and that night we all voted to use taxpayers' dollars toward that event. It was kind of a easiest vote for us to spend somebody else's money. And after long thoughts about it, I've got a check tonight for $500 to go toward that effort, to make a donation. And I challenge the rest of the board to match that.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
And if you all match that $500, I'll give another $500. So I think it should show our participation in wanting to save taxpayers' dollars and make sure an event like that, you know, we're 100% behind it. So, and that shows my feelings of being behind it as well, because I think
All
it's a
right.
good
Like
program.
I said, I'll also be getting it out there and posting some more also, so.
Okay, and just on staff, notice of events coming up. There've been some times where we've had a meeting within a day or two of our meeting, or within the next 2 weeks before our next meeting, there's an event that comes up, and it may be emailed out or it may not be emailed out, but we miss it because we're not in our email all the time. And I'd like to know if there's a possibility that we could be informed of any events coming up that the board might want to attend over the next 2 weeks prior to our next meeting. Because I know when the police visit came out a day or two after our last meeting, and if I hadn't been looking at my email, I might have missed it. And we could have been mentally jogged to, hey, look at your email, it's coming out, or we've got a date set, so that we can make sure everybody has an opportunity to, you know, plan for these things that's going on, just to be better informed. And as I said, like the communication we're talking about in the survey, just to keep the board better informed. And that'd be all I have.
Okay. Next up, Alderman Mills,
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Bray,
Nothing this evening.
Alderman Skinner,
Nothing tonight.
all right, Alderman Knox,
I'm good, sir.
all right, Alderman Cleaver,
Nothing tonight.
all right. Next up is Mayor's Report. I don't think I have anything additional to add this evening. If we do have a need for an executive session for
2, real estate.
2 for real estate, so I entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
I move. Oh,
Have a second?
second.
No? Any discussion? All right, this will be roll call.
Alderman Arnold,
Yes.
Alderman Bray,
Yes.
Alderman Cleaver,
Yes.
Alderman Knox,
Yes.
Alderman Mills,
Yes.
Alderman Skinner.
Yes.
All right, we'll adjourn executive session.